Nisha Patel Nasri was a 29-year-old female who lived in the Wembley area of London with her husband Fadi. She had been brought up in the Luton area with family. She was born learning the Hindu language with her Indian family. Nisha ran a very successful hairdressing business near to her home in Wembley, where she could be found almost 7 days a week. But she also found time as she volunteered for the last 3 years as a special constable for the police. In May 2003, she had married her sweetheart, 33-year-old Lebanese-born Fadi Nasri in Berkshire. He ran a limousine hire company from their home, and often the limos would be parked up outside the house. Fadi had been born in Beirut in 1970. Nisha was loyal, loving, caring, and a supportive wife. She was bubbly, fun, and a generally happy person who would do anything to help anyone. She was small in stature, only just over 5 foot tall, and she had dark hair that she enjoyed dyeing different colours. She also enjoyed trying out different hairstyles. Nisha was very close to her family, meeting up with them regularly or going over for dinner. Nisha had helped fund her husband's limousine business, which was registered in her name initially. She had also paid the deposit on their home. Fadi was pestering her to either add his name to the business, make him a partner, or transfer it back over to him. Now that evening, Nisha and her husband had gone out for dinner. It was to celebrate their 3rd wedding anniversary. They arrived home together and things seemed good between the pair. They did act like lovebirds together most of the time, but more recently things had started to crumble, with Nisha even considering divorce. But who knows what happens behind closed doors? Only they really knew. As it was later revealed that Fadi was having a secret affair with a Lithuanian SEX worker at the time of this case. But as far as we know, Nisha apparently had no idea. Nisha Patel Nasri's home was in a neighbourhood with generally low crime rates. It was a family-friendly area, and Nisha was so house-proud. It was the 11th of May 2006, and that night Nisha was upstairs getting ready for bed, washing her face, doing her skincare, and brushing her teeth. Her husband Fadi had gone out to meet friends for a snooker night, and had said that he wouldn't be home until late. So as Nisha laid her head down on the pillow and turned out the lights, she heard someone open the front door. By now it was 10 p.m, and this was strange as her husband had not been out long. So a bit worried at this point, Nisha quickly got out of bed. She did not turn on the lights but grabbed a torch before going down to check the front door was locked. As far as she remembered, she'd locked it behind Fadi, so there surely would be no reason why it should be opened. As Nisha walked through the house and crept quietly down the stairs, she was shocked to find that three men that she initially believed to be burglars, were inside her home. What did they want? Money? It's unknown from there what conversation was involved in that house that night between Nisha and the 3 men. But Nisha ran into the kitchen, quickly grabbing a large kitchen knife from her block to defend herself with. From there was a violent struggle, as one of the men wrestled the knife away from Nisha, stabbing her in the groin, before fleeing out of the front door and running off down the driveway. Nisha ran after the men. By now they were on the driveway. She was screaming as she collapsed on the gravel. A man wearing a hooded top was seen running away from the scene by a neighbour who had looked out the window when she heard Nisha crying out for help. They'd heard the screams and quickly called an ambulance. They also called Fadi to come home, telling him briefly what had happened. It felt like forever waiting for the ambulance to arrive, whilst Nisha slowly started to slip away. As the neighbours shouted, "Stay with me, Nisha!" Eventually, police and ambulance services arrived. The paramedics applied pressure to the area, trying to stop the bleeding, pumping fluids into her to try and replace the fluids that she'd already lost. But eventually, Nisha's heart stopped, and she was pronounced dead in Northwick Park Hospital as a result of the wound to her left thigh. It had caught a major artery. Meanwhile, back at the scene, police had cordoned off the area, asking the neighbours for statements, and as forensics combed the house and driveway, dusting for fingerprints and hoping to find DNA, back at the police station, the major incident team, now tasked with a murder inquiry, started with intelligence into who may have wanted to do this to a young couple who had everything going for them, and searching for a motive in this case. Initially, they considered that the men involved may have wanted the keys because of the limousines parked outside, but it soon became evident that robbery was not a motive in this case. A priority in this case was locating the weapon used. It was missing from the kitchen and the driveway. The detective ordered a meticulous search of the roads and gardens surrounding the scene, and after 2 weeks of searching, they found it down a drain cover, only 2 streets away from the crime scene. It was close to a shop which had CCTV camera footage. So, officers viewed the footage, and on following the camera, they saw one man leave a vehicle momentarily, only for about 7 seconds, and throw a weapon down the drain. A vehicle expert was brought in who recognised the car as being a silver Audi A4. The interesting thing was that the left number plate light was out, and it had an unusual mounted roof area which did not come standard with the car. So one team started the laborious task of trying to find that exact car in a sea of similar cars in the area. Back in the lab, forensic analysis of DNA found on the knife failed to match anyone on the national database. They looked into both Nisha and Fadi's backgrounds, who they hung around with, any enemies they may have had, and officers began considering motives. Her husband of 3 years, Fadi, had an alibi for that night. It was also backed up by witnesses. He was away from the scene. After the anniversary dinner that they'd had together, he'd gone to a nearby snooker hall with a friend, and while there he received a call telling him of the attack. Mr. Nasri, who ran a limousine company from the couple's home, initially tried to blame a business associate, but police soon ruled this lead out. After his wife's murder, Fadi sold the home that he shared and banked all the proceeds, moving into a new flat with his Lithuanian mistress. After speaking to police, he was asked to hand over his phone, which he wasn't happy about doing, but feeling like he had no choice at this point and making him look more suspicious if he didn't, he handed it over. And through forensic analysis, detectives soon discovered photographs of this mistress, something that he'd not been open to police about when asked. They also discovered the contact details for a known substance dealer in the area, Roger Leslie. He was a bit of a rogue, man already known to police. He had a volcanic temper, a string of convictions for terrible offences. What did a married man, a highly regarded business owner, be associating with a man like this for? Roger Leslie and Fadi Nasri had been in contact with each other an awful lot in the days leading up to this crime, and in particular on the day of this case. There were calls just before and immediately after Nisha was attacked. They looked into Roger Leslie, but noticed that he could not have committed this crime because he was nowhere in the area that night. But police were interested in something else. They did notice that every time Fadi messaged Roger Leslie then contacted Tony Emanuel. Now, Tony Emanuel was a nightclub promoter from London. Phone records from the night placed Tony Emanuel at the scene of the crime. As soon as Nisha was murdered, Tony Emanuel contacted Roger Leslie, and Roger Leslie contacted Fadi to probably tell him that the job was done. It was like a chain of calls from one to the other and then back and forth with Roger Leslie in the middle. It was like Roger Leslie wasn't involved, but he was putting people where they needed to be. But also they discovered that Tony Emanuel was not only linked to the scene by his phone records, but he also owned a silver Audi A4. But that's not all. To top it off, complete with the defective number plate light on the left and an unusual aerial on the top. It was a major breakthrough in the case. They now could link people to the car to the scene, and the weapon to the car. It was all unravelling in front of them. It had taken 6 months to get to this stage though. And when they brought Tony Emanuel in for questioning, eventually he admitted that he had been paid by a man named Jason Jones. He was a nightclub bouncer with 76 previous convictions. He was apparently paid to drive to Nisha's house, but that's not all. He said he pulled up outside. He was apparently under the impression that he was the driver of a substance deal. He said that Jason Jones had been the one to go in and carry out this attack. He told police that Jason Jones had gone inside Nisha's house, that he had apparently seen money hanging around all over the place, which was apparently true as Nisha had been counting out the takings for the day on the table. Police knew that there was no forced entry to the property and it was unlikely that Nisha would let them in. Had someone helped him to gain access to the house that night? But why Nisha, and what was the motive? Whilst questioning Fadi Nasri, he burst into tears, telling officers that he needed time to clear his head, but he would speak to them. So police started to look closer into him. He had a passion for the high life. He drove a luxury car, wore expensive clothes, and claimed to be making £150,000 a year from his limo business. But in reality, he was facing financial ruin. His business was not doing well at all. He'd run up a six-figure debt, and he had people on his back asking him for money. Nisha was the only breadwinner of the home. She was working 7 days a week to keep the couple afloat. Their marriage was on the rocks, and as they spoke to people close to Nisha, they realised that she'd secretly told friends that she was desperate to have a baby, but that Fadi never touched her anymore. Now, it was said that he was having an affair with a Lithuanian mistress, although they did not feel that Nisha was aware of this. The Lithuanian mistress was a girl he had met at a brothel whilst paying for sex. He took her away on luxurious holidays and supplied her with copious amounts of gifts. The couple had taken mutual life insurance policies out only 3 months prior to this crime, which would have paid out £100,000 for each death. Nadi Nasri even attempted to claim his wife's entitlement to half of the equity of her parents' house from her brother, which would have amounted to £400,000. Plus, Fadi was the sole beneficiary of Nisha's will. It was also heard that Nisha had put the money forward for Fadi's limo business initially. Her name was on the business also, and that Fadi had been on at her for her to put his name on there, make him a partner, or to even transfer it over to him. But she hadn't. Fadi knew that divorce would mean complete financial ruin for him, but after months of the investigation it became clear that Fadi Nasri stood to benefit from her death. From Nisha's death, Fadi would profit about £500,000 in total. They now had what they looked like a motive. Police believed that Fadi had instructed Roger Leslie to orchestrate his wife's murder by providing him with the keys to the house. Roger hired Jason Jones to carry it out, and Jones had hired Tony Emanuel to drive them to the scene, thinking it was a substance deal. Fadi's role was to literally keep away and to create himself an alibi by being away from the area and being with friends as witnesses, and the crime went forward. Before calls flew back and forth to advise them on the timing, he made himself scarce before it all played out, and inevitably, Nisha was murdered. When police put all this to Fadi, he confessed to having paid Roger Leslie to orchestrate the murder. Though subsequent investigation, the police concluded the motive for the crime was monetary. Nisha Patel Nasri's widower, Fadi, was arrested on the 27th of February 2007 on murder and conspiracy to murder. During the trial at the Old Bailey, they heard that Fadi and Nisha were openly affectionate to each other, like lovebirds towards each other. But this was just a facade, and it was starting to crumble, with Fadi and his disillusioned wife starting to consider getting a divorce. A regular visitor to sex workers, Fadi began a passionate affair with this Lithuanian mistress, Laura, and started meeting her for weekly sex sessions. As his wife worked 7 days a week in the hairdressing salon, it made it easy for him, whilst he was lavishing his mistress with gifts. In the months before the killing, he took her on a secret holiday to Egypt. Even though his business was in trouble, he could not afford the lifestyle he wanted or was portraying to others. The police felt that Fadi had decided to kill his wife. to pay for it in what police branded his final betrayal. In court, Fadi Nasri, Roger Leslie and Jason Jones were all found guilty of murder by a jury in 2008. The death of Nisha was described as a tragedy by the Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Ian Blair. The judge at the Old Bailey ordered that Fadi Nasri must serve at least 20 years in prison. The judge, Peter Beaumont, and the Recorder of London said Fadi Nasri had betrayed the trust of his wife Nisha. She was a loyal, loving and supportive wife, the judge said. Fadi showed no emotion as he was sentenced. The judge said Fadi left his wife defenceless in her own home as he exercised his alibi he had constructed for himself. He told Fadi there was a significant degree of planning and premeditation in this crime. That night she was vulnerable. It was a gross abuse of the trust he owed her as her husband. Leslie was ordered to serve at least 18 years in prison, whilst Jason Jones was told he must serve at least 20. The getaway driver, Emmanuel, was cleared